in front of them. The three apostles are Peter, James, and John. In the most important moments of his life, Jesus always invited these three to be with him. We recall when he rose the girl from the dead, he took Peter, James, and John inside the house to raise her up. When Jesus was in Gethsemane, he took with him Peter, James, and John, and he went to an isolated place with them. And you see this throughout the four Gospels. So when we see them present at the moment of Transfiguration, this means this is a very essential moment in the ministry of Christ. Transfiguration means that Christ showed his divinity, in his human nature. Without leaving his body, he just allowed the divinity of God, him being God the Son, to radiate through his body. And of course, Peter was totally delighted, and he said to him, why don't we just stay here and enjoy the vision? You know, like sometimes in your life, when you wake up one morning and you feel like awesome, right? Don't you say to yourself, oh, it's so good to feel this way. I wish I could feel this way every second of my life. Multiply that by a million times, that with Peter looking at Christ, showing his divinity through his humanity. Now, why would Jesus do this 1 week before his passion? 3 reasons. The first reason is when he transfigured, he was talking to the two main characters of the Old Testament. Moses, representing the law, and Elijah, representing the prophets. The law and the prophets in the Old Testament are basically the way God communicated himself and communicated his will to his people, to the Hebrew people. But yet, at the end of the Transfiguration, what happened to Elijah and Moses? They disappeared. And Jesus was found alone. Theologians today agree that this means that the Old Testament now is really handing over God's revelation to the New Testament. Before, in the Old Testament, God was talking through Elijah and through Moses and the prophets, but now God is not going to talk through anyone anymore. When Jesus was left alone, it is God himself in the flesh talking to his people. That is the first reason why he wanted to transfigure and show that the Old Testament now is becoming a reality. Old Testament is a shadow, New Testament is the reality. The Old Testament is the scent of the steak, the New Testament is the ribeye, the filet mignon. Okay? That's reality, shadow. Are you with me? The second reason is he transfigured in order to show his divinity and prove his divinity. Because the most important and essential aspect of the New Testament is the fact that Jesus Christ is God himself in person, in a human nature, incarnation. The New Testament is not an ensemble of teachings that a guru is going to give to people to follow. The New Testament is not a certain rules or regulations of human practices like yoga or whatever it is, Chinese nirvana, that people could practice in order to be close to the divinity. No. Christianity is based on a person, a face, the person of God himself, who became human and not, of course, stopping to be divine because he can, and in order to save humanity. The third reason why Christ decided to be transfigured is the following. Remember, 1 week after his transfiguration, he was nailed on the cross, dying like a thief, correct? He did this in order to prove to the apostles, when you see me next week, hanging on a cross, don't forget that you saw me in my divinity. And that is a proof to the apostles that the mystery of death and resurrection, the mystery of suffering and glory are intertwined. Actually, there is only one mystery with two facets, two faces, suffering and glory. And that is the most difficult thing to live with, we as Catholics today. Let me tell you why. When you had your surgery, in the atrocious pain that you were in, I am 100% sure that you were not thinking of glory and joy or painful. Am I correct? It's like somebody, when you are underwater, you look around, what do you see? You see water. My friend Karen said, I cannot get over it. I don't know if there is any way out because my son died, 33 years old. I just cannot imagine a way out. When you are going through a project in your life and you have the pressure of finishing that project, whether you're building a house or you're buying a company or you're building a restaurant, whatever it is, in the midst of all of it, in the midst of the cross, when you're carrying the cross, you don't think about the resurrection. You don't think about the light of the tunnel because you can. Because we do things once at a time. And that is the most challenging thing of Christian spirituality, is to continue to believe while you are in the middle of suffering that there is a light at the tunnel. And that's what Abraham did in the first reading today, right? God asked him to sacrifice his son. He took his son. Before that, God was very clear. Abraham, you are going to multiply and fill the earth. Your descendants will be as numerous as the sand of the sea, correct? And now God is asking him to sacrifice his only son. There is a paradox, contradiction as it was, right? But what did Abraham do? He was going with it. All right? So now you can go with it. Amen. We believe in one God.